All right, good morning and welcome to Talk Tuesday, September 21st. I'm going to go ahead today. We're going to focus on FAQs, frequently asked questions. We've been getting a lot of them here, and I know you are getting them at your district as well. And so I have included information here about FAQs, but I invite you to put any FAQs you might have that you hear, a lot of questions that you're hearing that you have in particular, to go ahead and put them in the chat or to speak up at any point. We call this Talk Tuesday because we would love everyone to engage as you wish. You can stop me at any time and ask questions. This is meant to be how many people, a 20-way conversation, or everyone is invited to participate. So I'm going to go ahead and go over agenda. Unfortunately, Steve Profit, my partner in this work, is not able to be here. He got called to another project, but we're lucky to have Lauren Johns here from CERC to help us as well with our partnership. I'm going to go over what's new at CSDE and our partners a little bit. Then I'm going to get into some frequently asked questions. Some of them may seem kind of basic to some of you, but there's others that I know are on the minds of all of you. So let's go ahead. And I'm hoping my objective is to develop a document or a web page with frequently asked questions, so people will know where to go for this stuff. And then we'll go over upcoming attendance and engagement meetings. Okay, so what's new at CSDE? This is quite a long list. It's not all necessarily relevant to your particular work, but this all comes from the Superintendent's Digest, which is updated after new information is sent out to superintendents on Monday afternoons and Thursday afternoons. The Superintendent's Digest is updated with all of this information. I have the link coming up. I usually have it at the bottom of this page, but it looks like I ran out of space. So I highlighted a couple here. There's Eversource Hardship Matching Payment Program for families who are struggling. This might be something you'd want to download. It comes in English and Spanish, and make sure that your home visitors, your teachers, anyone in social workers has this information so that they can share it with families. There's also a really nice handout that went out on September 16th around assessment data for families. I'm not sure if you're aware, but new assessment data from last year went out. Really showed the difference between remote learner, fully remote learners and fully in-school, in-person learners. And there's, I have it coming, a picture of it coming up on next slide that you can use when discussing these issues with parents. There's a link here where all of the DPH established testing sites are, as we're coming close to the timeline where everyone in schools and hospitals and state employees have to be vaccinated, or some can choose to get tested every week. This might be a resource that some folks might want, or that you may have folks who would like to get tested. So that's been updated, and that link is right here under September 16th. There's addendum 5, interim guidance for responding to COVID-19 scenarios in Connecticut school districts. And let me see, I'm not sure there's anything that's exactly relevant to our work here in attendance, but I wanted to make sure that you had all of this because we all wear many hats. And so here it is. And when we drop the PDF into the chat, or we send it out later this afternoon, we will, you will be able to access all of these links. So Back Together this fall, this is that resource for families on assessments, on the student assessment data. It's very friendly. It has links for them. It might be something you want to share with your home visitors, like I said, or just your staff, so that they know how to explain what the assessment data is telling us and what some of the clarifications might be, because we were in a pandemic last year. So that link is here in Back Together this fall. Okay. And this is our partners at Prevention. I always say this like this. This is our friends at the Prevention Partnership. The Governor's Prevention Partnership, they do a lot of work and training on mentoring in schools. We know that mentoring is one of the top research-based interventions for especially middle school and high school students. Mentors can really make a difference in attendance and engagement in school. And they offer lots of free trainings for districts, for mentors, for mentor coordinators. So I encourage you to look into this training and their website. This one is on October 5th. It's focused on how can you help young people who have experienced trauma. We know that there's a lot right now. And so this training looks to me like it could be for a wide variety of audiences, working with children and youth. Any questions so far? Okay. The next slide is frequently asked questions. So some of this is a work in progress. So I just, I want to make you aware of that. So, you know, if you have any questions, any feedback, you can put it in the chat. You can raise your hand or just speak out and I'll help with that. Or you can let me know offline if you have anything you'd like to add or doesn't make sense. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is where can I find information and Connecticut resources regarding chronic absence online. Now, everyone knows, this is recorded, right? Everyone knows that sometimes the State Department of Education can be difficult to navigate and to find things. So I've put these links right in this slide for our chronic absence webpage, our related resources webpage, truancy referral guidance is online, attendance awareness campaign with all the downloadable posters and flyers. There's a Talk Tuesday page that has all of our past Talk Tuesday presentations, and hopefully we'll have some videos up there too. EdSite is where you can get all of your data, and there's also the Superintendent's Digest link is here. That's what is updated from the Commissioner's Office, Communications Office twice a week at least. And what I wanted to do is, if you could bear with me, I'm going to be a little informal today because I want to kind of show you a little bit around our website so that you can see, you know, what we have here. So this is our chronic absence webpage. And from here, on here, we have, you know, a regular introduction. I'm keeping a space holder here for updates on the mental health and wellness days. We haven't gotten official guidance out on that yet, but it will go here on our chronic absence page once it is ready. So there's a link here to the Public Act. If anyone's looking for, now what does it say? There's a link right on the front page to the attendance awareness campaign materials, guidance for supporting student attendance. I call these sort of our top pages. The Reducing Chronic Absence Prevention Intervention Guide, that came out a few years ago, but it still is the nuts and bolts of how to address chronic absence in a systemic and structured way in your district. I highly recommend it for all school attendance and district attendance team members and anyone who's trying to learn more about chronic absence. There's the Addendum 14 came out last September. Oh my gosh, exactly a year ago. And this is guidance around remote learning, but there's some really great resources and links in there, especially around referral for educational neglect. It was developed in partnership with DCF. And so there's, you know, I can link on it. I can show you. I can go in a rabbit hole on some of this. So I'm going to try really hard not to, but this is the document supporting student attendance, engagement, hybrid and remote learning. This is all about how we were tracking and supporting. But this last section down here, addressing student safety and well-being during hybrid or remote learning, was written with DCF. So it says a trauma-informed approach that is sensitive to the family's need should be taken prior to considering a student to be truant or a family to be suspect of educational neglect. And it talks about sort of the steps you should take. You need to have a meeting with a parent and the student. There should be a PPT held if a student has missed too much school. There's what we call in Connecticut Child Find, and there should be PPT scheduled for that family to address what is happening with the child, and maybe there may be some learning supports that might be needed, and that might be why the student's missing too much school. So there's links here for educational neglect occurs when a school-age child has extensive absences from school through the intent or neglect of the parent or caregiver. I don't want to get into this topic, but I can tell you we did have a whole webinar last year with a DCF on this topic. So the resources are on our Talk Tuesday page. So that is there. I don't know much the time. So we have the mental health days. We have a link to the Talk Tuesday page, which on the Talk Tuesday page, you'll see an explanation of what it is. The most recent Talk Tuesday presentations, the last time we talked about mobilizing your teams, and then before that, Attendance 101. And Dr. Judy Carson did a fantastic presentation, the beginning of year relationship building tools with many of or several of the flamboyant resources were part of that. And then here's all the presentations by topic for the current school year and presentations by topic for last school year. We had a lot. We covered a lot: homelessness, parent-teacher home visits, and so those are all there for you. I also wanted to show you, if you go on the State Department of Education website, on this left here, the sections of each page. We have a chronic absence page, and then we have a related resources page. This page I need to update more often, but it does have the nuts and bolts of what we need. This is where you'll find the truancy link and other resources here. Family resource centers, mentoring is here. School-based diversion, school-based health centers, social emotional learning. And I wanted to go to the truancy referral guidance page. And there's a link on the slides from today. So there's a whole section on truancy. And when you go into the documents and forms, there's, of course, the guidelines for excused and unexcused absence, the PSIS system, and then there's Youth Service Bureau referral for truancy form. And there's a memo from the commissioner at the time, and there's a guidance document that talks about the whole truancy referral system that was established back in 2016-17 when the state eliminated truancy as a referral with quizzes to the courts, and now referrals are to a community-based supports or youth service bureaus. So I'm going to go back to any questions while we're here. Has anybody been looking for something they can't find?
I just had a quick question. Do we know if, I think it is the Youth Service Bureau referrals, do we still need parent consent before we can send one over?
Yes, you do. Unfortunately, that is a barrier that there are many people working on that to find ways to eliminate it, but the consent form does require a parent signature to send all of that student information over to the Youth Service Bureau. Have any districts found a strategy with that for how to make that happen more easily? I know there's been districts, I'm not sure exactly who, have talked about when families register or do paperwork at the beginning of the year, there's a waiver or consent for that. When they register, but I don't know the legal exact how that's done. So the issue with truancy is, if you don't have a youth service bureau that is very strong or has those type of services, or you can't get a parent signature, you're really working within the chronic absence world still, again, with trying to find what is the barrier, what is the root cause. We're not going down the truancy route. For me, I think truancy sometimes has the negative connotation, and you will hardly ever hear me talk about truancy, because we will look at, well, how did that student get to where they are? What were the strategies that were tried before back when the student started to miss too much school? And there's many times students are missing too much school that's not necessarily a student or family's fault. It may be a situational case. There may be something going on in school. And so the tier 3 students who have missed too much school are very difficult to bring back to school on a regular basis and take much more collaboration with community organizations, much more. I'm looking at Erica right now because I know in Bristol, Erica, I know in Bristol that they do sort of an assessment of students who have missed too much school to figure out what is the root cause. And you have to try different interventions. You can't just say, well, we're going to try this and that's it. It's ongoing support for those students. Okay. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint and let's see. Here we go. So all these links are here. I didn't take you to EdSite. Would you guys like me to take you to EdSite? Is there anyone who's interested in seeing where you can find your data on EdSite? Or does everyone seem to feel like they know that? Okay. So one of the questions are, what are Talk Tuesdays? This is the FAQ part, if you remember. So Talk Tuesdays are just a professional networking opportunity that provides us to come together to support each other and our work to improve student attendance and engagement. They're to share lessons learned, troubleshoot common concerns, and provide a community of support for each other. They're held bi-weekly. We engage state agency, district, and school staff. There's many folks here from SDE, a lot of our colleagues. There's folks here from, I just see Aristide Hill, who's our partner, who's our friend at Governor's Prevention Partnership. There's a lot of different people that come to Talk Tuesday and serve in many roles within districts. They could be, we have superintendents, sometimes we have assistant superintendents, directors of special ed, parent, family, school liaisons, teachers. So it's a wide variety of folks who are doing their best to help improve student attendance. This audience, this Talk Tuesday is different from our other community of practice in that this is only for Alliance districts and LEAP districts. So, and the Commissioners Network schools and the charter schools. So those schools that are working with mostly with our turnaround office. Those are larger urban areas and our school districts that are part of the Alliance and Opportunity districts. And we really hope that you can help identify the topics for future meetings and present problems of practice, which we've had in the past. And we like to spend time together in small groups, and we often lose a lot of people when we do that, but we're going to bring that back, not today, but in future sessions. Here's how you can stay connected to Talk Tuesday. Many of you were already transferred right to our new Talk Tuesday listserv. So you already are on there. If you are not getting emails from me related to Talk Tuesday and other attendance things, but there's instructions here on to address an email to our listserv and just a blank email, and in the body put subscribe to SDE_Talk_Tuesday with your first name and last name in parentheses. If you are receiving this and you don't want to, you would do the same thing, only you would put sign off SDE_Talk_Tuesday and send the email. So that's all about Talk Tuesday. And I just wanted to start with that so everybody I wanted to set the stage for what this is and why we're doing it. So to get into some of the real pressing questions, so will the state continue to collect monthly data and learning model, monthly attendance and learning model data in 2021-22? And the answer is yes, we will. We started this last year. We collect the data monthly from each of the districts, and it's reported out on EdSite about 6 weeks later, a month later. And we'll be able to, we were able to last year, and we were I think we were the only state that did this. We could monitor our attendance and our learning models on a regular basis to know what was happening in the state and where we needed to give support. So some of this was written from the performance office, so it does have sort of a PSIS lens. So the record layout will be unchanged and monthly due dates are expected to be similar. Given the attendance challenges in the 2020-21 school year, the CSDE is continuing this collection. Because of this research conducted by CSDE last year in partnership with Attendance Works, there's a report that this links to that affirms that the odds of being chronically absent in winter were about 17 times higher for students who are chronically absent in the fall compared to those with satisfactory attendance. This is very important for right now. Right now, we probably have at least, what do you think, about 20 school days, 20, 25 school days, maybe in some districts. So you should be starting to get concerned about students who have more than 3, I would say, chronic absences. It's 10, remember, chronic absence is 10% of school days. The student has been enrolled or participating in your district. So if you have had 20, if you have had, say we're at later in the school year and we've had 50 school days, you'd be thinking, well, 5 or 6, 4, maybe 4 days is too many. That student's on track to be chronically absent. And if they're chronically absent in the fall, from this report, we know that they're more likely to be chronically absent in the winter. So I would suggest you take a look at the data, that report. Okay, so note that during 21-22 school year, students who may be learning remotely in limited individualized circumstances, as outlined in the remote learning guidance that came out of our academic office, I'm going to go into this a little bit more, it can be reported as being in attendance through this collection. So if you have a student or students who are out on quarantine or what we call limited individualized circumstances, they can learn, they can be marked in attendance if you're following the remote learning guidance, coupled with this district should use the same 4-part framework to track attendance for those students on their remote learning days. So we don't have, families and students cannot opt to, like, I'm going to do remote learning, and you can have them in a remote learning program. What happens is, and this next guidance will tell you, if students can be marked in attendance while quarantined. So for students who must be in COVID-19 isolation or quarantine for that period of time, they can have remote learning experiences. If there's localized outbreaks in a school or specific school district, you can go to remote temporarily for those situations. And then in rare and individualized circumstances for students with elevated risk from COVID-19 exposure, due to cohabitating family members with documented vulnerability to COVID-19, you can provide a remote learning opportunity. This is a district by district decision and how you do this. The part that comes in from the academic office, from our Chief Academic Officer, Irene Parisi, we presented this at our community of practice last week, that you have to have a policy to address how remote learning might be used to provide continued educational opportunities, right? There should be a policy in place for how we're going to do this that documents eligibility with equity and consistency in mind, and addresses the frequency and with what restrictions access will be granted, so that this is done equitably across the district and for all students who are in need of it. So students who are remote in these circumstances can be deemed in attendance if they're present for at least half of the school day, just like our regular in-school attendance is defined as being present in school for half of the school day. You have to use that same 4-part framework, similar to the one we used last year. And there's a note here that the precise nature and design of the remote programming that is offered in these rare circumstances is up to the district. So there's work at the district to prepare, if you're going to allow this to happen, to develop these policies and practices that are aligned with practices and delivered in an equitable manner. So I just wanted to show you that this will look familiar to everyone. So a remote student can be considered as being in attendance on a particular day if the total time spent on one or more of the following activities equals at least half the school day. So they can be in synchronous virtual classes, which are live classes that are streamed real time to students using a video conferencing platform like Google Meet, Zoom, Microsoft. There could be synchronous virtual meetings, maybe with a teacher, counselor, social worker, paraprofessional, using a video conferencing platform or telephone. They can be time logged into electronic systems, can be used to identify any time over and above the synchronous and meetings, virtual classes and meetings that the student may have participated during the day. They can, that reads kind of interesting, right? They don't have to do any combination of these. They can do just one of these if it equals half of a school day. So if they're logged into their electronic systems and they have assignments like watch this video and write this paper, or journal every day, or journal, you need to journal. If the teacher, it's very much on the teacher. If they feel that the student did a half a day's worth of work, or work that equals a half a day of school, the teacher can mark them as present. And then assignment submission and completion. So if they are not working in an electronic system, they could do it in another way described by the teacher. So just a couple notes: if a student is absent on a given day, either in person or remote, they cannot make up the work for that absence on another day. So we measure daily attendance in Connecticut. So the student, the guidance we've given in the past and stands is to give the student the whole day, not just school day hours. Like teachers will check the schoolwork the following day to make sure the student did what they were supposed to do the day before. And then districts should track membership and attendance separately for a student's in-person versus remote days. And I did got a question about this the other day, whether or not you should have a remote present code. And it seems as though your PSIS coordinators will know this because you're going to have to report it to the State Department of Education on a monthly basis, both your learning models and your attendance, as we did last year. Now there's been a lot of questions about this, and I just want to take a minute and let you all digest it. I could go back to this slide if you like, and just give you all a minute just to read it and see if there's any questions. All right. Are there any questions? Yes, there's some questions in the chat. Let me see. Okay. Do the remote learning codes need to be consistent pre-K-12, or can they be specific to elementary and secondary? That is a question for you. I don't know the coding specifically. I don't know why they would be. I don't know the answer to that, but I will take the answer back. If there's someone on the line who does, the question is, do the remote learning codes need to be consistent pre-K-12, or can they be specific to elementary or secondary? So now I will, I'll take that back to our performance office and see how that all works for you. Any other questions? Okay. So what does the data tell us about absenteeism in Connecticut? We're getting ready to do a national webinar with the commissioner, and this is something that she's sharing because it tells us a lot about where we need to put our energies, where we need to focus our resources, and send our home visitors. And so here we are with data from the end of last year. This is from the monthly data collection that we were just talking about. This isn't the official end of the year data, although it says June, but this is the monthly collection, not the which can be confused with the official annual June collection that will show your official chronic absence rate for last year. That has not come out yet. It's expected shortly. That will show, where we are. So for all students in Connecticut, this shows that in 2019-20, when the school year ended in March, right, these calculations for 19-20 were based on only in-person school days in March. And it did go up. We went up from the previous year. It was 12.2, where all students right now we're at 20, as of June, we are at 20.7%. So that jumps significantly. But what's more concerning is if you look at our English learners, chronic absence rates doubled. Students with disabilities went up significantly, free meal, eligible for free meal, reduced, eligible for reduced free meal. And you can see the difference with the students who are not eligible for free meals. Their chronic absence rate was higher, but was about our state average, what our state average was in 2018-19. And then if you look at the students who are homeless, that's really concerning. And so one of Louis Telerita, who is our McKinney-Vento, he and I were talking yesterday, and you'll see a couple slides coming up, but really concerned about identification of students who are homeless. We think that in this last year may have been harder to identify those students because they weren't coming into school, but we really want folks to be looking for students who are struggling with housing, overnight housing, and trying to connect them with McKinney-Vento supports. Is there anything here that's surprising to folks, or any questions regarding this? This particular slide is on EdSite. This is from that report I mentioned before from AttendanceWorks, and what it looks like is chronic absence by learning mode and race, ethnicity in Connecticut. So they this is jagged, spotted is predominantly in person. You'll see in all 4 categories. This is white. This is up here in the right-hand corner is Black, African American. The left top corner is all races, and the bottom left is Hispanic, Latino of any race. So you'll see in all of the all categories that chronic absence was lowest and predominantly in person. And then it was highest with our predominantly remote students. But you'll see our lowest chronic absence rates, regardless of learning model, are with our white students. You'll also notice that in 9th grade for our Black and African American and our Hispanic Latino students, 9th grade is a spike last year of chronic absence. So that tells us that our students in 10th grade this year are students who we really need to be concerned about. I know a lot of districts are using their ESSER funds to do transition for 9th graders, and I've heard of districts who are using transition supports for 9th and 10th graders because they have many 10th graders who have never been in the school either. So, so we wanted to share that with you. There's a link here to the full report. And then this shows us what we learned, that chronic absence was most prevalent among predominantly remote students and least prevalently among in-person students, with rates for hybrid students falling in between. So this is the hybrid. This is our predominantly in person, and this black line was 2019-20, which is pretty much close, very close to our predominantly in-person attendance last year. Any questions regarding this? Our performance office produced this report with AttendanceWorks, and AttendanceWorks has used it as a national model for tracking attendance, and most other states were not tracking attendance this way. And what it has given Connecticut is fantastic information and data for districts and schools and the state to support our families and students. And we're very grateful because we know that by doing this, it was a lot of work for districts to get this data to the state every month. We went from an annual collection to a monthly collection, and that is a big deal. So where can I find attendance data for my school or my district? And so where do you just saw the state data. Well, we have all that for your district too. So you can go to EdSite, and on the EdSite, you can go into, up at the top, it'll say students in a drop down, and you go to attendance, and you can get trend data for, I think, up to 8 years of trend data for your district. And you can get it for every school, and you can get it for every student group. Would it be helpful for me to demonstrate that for folks? I see shaking heads. Okay. So let me go, and then I'll show you where you can get your monthly attendance from last year. Let's see. So I'm going to go to Department of Education. This is the home page. So you go to the SDE homepage and you go down a little bit and there's EdSite right here, big block that says EdSite. You click on EdSite. And this is was always at EdSite for a number of years now. So you go to the Students tab and then you go to Attendance. And you see here the trend for Connecticut. Of course, this is not going to let me see if I can reduce this a little bit. There we go. So here's, I know it's probably not that easy to see. I can get a little bigger. All right, I'll go back. Okay, so for Connecticut, you can see from 2015-16 to 2019-20, we went from 9.6 to 9.9 to 10.7 to 10.4 and then 12.2. And this is the year that COVID hit, right? In March, we closed schools in March. And so you can see we started to go up a little, and this is very frustrating to us. But if you recall, if you've been working in attendance for a number of years, there was a time when in-school suspensions for more than a half a day were counted as absence. And that kind of bumped up our attendance. So that's no longer the case. I just had that question recently. If a student is in school suspension for more than a half a day, they are present in school. So we fixed that. That was a legislation that we weren't so happy with. So I'm going to pick a district. I'm going to say Ansonia. And so I submit. And I can see Ansonia's data over the last 5 years. When you export, well, there's more links over here where you can see data all the way back to 2012, 2013. You see that over there, all the way up to 2019. And then there's a presentation you can look at that the Performance Office put together. There's also, you can export this data, and if you're really good with Excel spreadsheets, you can filter and sort and look at all that stuff. So here it is for the trend data from 2015-16 to 2019-20. You can see they had a couple years where there was a blip, and then they started to come down again, and then COVID hit. And so within a couple weeks, we're going to have last year's data. We're going to have 2020, 2021. It should be released anytime. There'll be a press release and we'll go over it as soon as it comes out on Talk Tuesday. So the other thing you can look at here on this drop-down menu is you can look at it by grade. So if I submit in Ansonia, I can see their chronic absence rates for every grade. And if I were on their district attendance team, I'd be very concerned about kindergarten and grade 1. And starting to be more concerned about, starting to go up grade 8, grade 9. This is very typical to see. We call it the Nike swoop. You see very high kindergarten, first grade, and then it dips in the second, third, fourth, fifth, and then start to come up in middle school again. So you can also look at it by school. So in Ansonia, let's say I just want to look at Ansonia High School. And I want to look at it by English learner status. So you can pick a school here, and then you can pick from race, ethnicity, gender, special education, free reduced price lunch or meals, English learner, grade, and high needs. Let's do special education and submit. And you can see the difference here from non-special ed students to special ed students for this high school. You could also see it for the district as well if you wanted to, or for any school. So that is the EdSite trend data reports, and you can always download these reports. But what was new, I'm going to go back over here on the left to EdSite Home. What was new last year, and this is kind of hard to see because it doesn't look to me like a link necessarily, but you see this head, it looks like a header, supporting student participation in 2020-21. If you click on that, it brings you to student attendance reports, monthly reports. and it shows you map of attendance rates for students with high needs by district. So you can click over a map, and let's just say we want to go to here. We'll go to Hamden, and it'll give you Hamden's data. You can click on Hamden, and that will open up as well. But you can kind of see a map of how we're doing for students with high needs, which are our special ed, our English learners, and our pre-meals students are a subset of the total student population. And here are data files. This is where you'll find your district data. You can download, they come as CSVs, but you can save them as Excel. So if I open this one, let me see if it'll open for me. Here's attendance by school group. You can get all kinds of data. And you can sort it by you can find your district. So here's Andover's data. If you're not good at filtering, you can just find your district. Otherwise, you can sort and filter if you know how to do that. But that's where you can find your data from last year. So you go to the State Department of Education website, you go to EdSite, and that comes up here. You can either go to students to see your yearly trends and look at attendance. You can also look at discipline, English learners. There's lots of data on EdSite. For the monthly data, this will start to be updated as soon as we start collecting, probably in October. This will start to get populated with new data. So you click on the student, supporting student participation 2021, learning models, enrollment attendance. I'm sure this will change, or they'll add another one, but that's where you go to get the data for your district. To find it, you have to download these data files. And just there's also some other grids here, graphs to look at. All right, so I'm going to go back to, I'm going to look at the time, and I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint slides. Okay, so that's where you can find your data. EdSite Secure and the Early Indication Tool are part of EdSite, but they are secure. As it says, you need a password. There are people in your password. The Early Indication Tool will show you data for 2 years and how a student has fared over the last 2 years for attendance and discipline and grades. All kinds of, it puts a lot of different data together and kind of does some color coding for specific students. So if you're working with a school attendance team and you kind of want to see, we've got incoming 9th graders, how did they do there's 2 years of data there? Who are the students we might want to be concerned with? You might want to take a look at your early indication tool. It's an early warning system that we've set up for schools. So what resources can assist us with developing policies and practices? These are the nuts and the bolts documents that have been around for a while. The guidelines for excused and unexcused absences, it has not been released or updated since 2013. So if you're looking at it and thinking you have the old version, you don't. It's just a matter of, there's a lot going through the department right now. It has been updated and it's being reviewed. So we hope to have that released soon. We have tracking attendance on remote days, which is that graph that I just showed you. There's the CSDE guidance regarding the future of remote learning, and there's also the PSIS reference guide. 2 pieces of information in that document. Appendix F is guidelines for reporting student attendance in PSIS. That will tell you, well, what do we do if a student's on vacation? What do we do with students who are homeschooled? Not homeschooled, with homebound. Lots of different scenarios in Appendix F about how to track students in attendance. And then Appendix L is very important. It's on page 59 of this reference guide. It's reporting information about students who are disengaged, which is a nice way of saying students haven't been to school in a really long time. There are protocols that you must follow before you use a code to exit a student. For instance, code 25 is common. You need to go to send a letter. You need to do a home visit. You need to make sure the student doesn't live in the community. If you find, then if you find the student does still live in your town, you cannot exit them unless they're enrolled in a different school, private or whatever. If you can't find the student and you've done everything in that protocol, there are steps you can take to exit a student. A student cannot be unenrolled by a parent or themselves unless they're 17, and the parent needs to come into the school to do that. And that's all spelled out in there. You can't just exit students. I got a call from a district, a couple of districts actually, like, we have 18-year-olds on our rolls that have been there for a long time. Can we just exit them because we haven't seen them? No, you have to go through the protocol. In order to exit an 18-year-old, to determine that they no longer live in the district and that you can document that, or the 18-year-old or 17-year-old with parent can come into the school office and sign their student out of school. Then there's some counseling that happens then so that they know their options. They know that there's other options than just quitting school. If a student is just, what I've heard, administratively withdrawn from school by the district, it causes issues when they go to enroll in adult ed if they don't have any kind of withdrawal form. So take a look at that if you're not sure, if you know how to do all of that. So here's another one, and this one is definitely a work in progress, but I can give you some tips on this. What are mental health wellness days? So Public Act 2146 passed this year, and it allows students to have 2 mental health and wellness days. It basically says, it describes a school day during which a student attends to such students' emotional and psychological well-being in lieu of attending school. For the school year commencing on July 1st this year and each year thereafter, a local and regional board of ed shall permit any student enrolled in grades kindergarten to 12, inclusive, to take 2 mental health wellness days during the school year, during which day such students shall not be required to attend school. No student shall take mental health wellness days during consecutive school days. Frequently asked questions: is Friday and Monday consecutive? Are they consecutive? Yes, they are. They cannot take a Friday and a Monday. That would be considered consecutive. So because these are required, students are allowed to do this by law. The guidance is being written and under review right now, but I can tell you, because they're required by law, they should be excused and they should not count towards truancy. Students have access to these 2 days. They should have, I would recommend, as districts develop their policies and practices aligned to those policies for equity purposes, a parent's permission, documented parent's permission to take those days, just like any other options. But it wouldn't require any other kind of documentation than that. So that might answer some of your questions as you're thinking about this, but official correspondence is coming out, along with guidance for supporting students who are taking mental health and wellness days, so that we're not just saying, oh, I'm going to take my day, that we're doing some education about what it is and why we have them, and how to use them, and why we need to take care of our mental health. And also, what should happen if a student does take a mental health and wellness day? Should there be a follow-up to see if there's resources needed? Should this be considered by someone who is working with a family who might know, what the situation is? So that will be in there as well. Any other questions about that? So I also just got a question. I've gotten questions about students who can't come to school because they're missing their immunizations. There is a guidance document from the department that was written a couple of years ago about best practices for improving attendance by addressing school health assessments and immunizations. And it does talk about, this is a shared ownership between the district and the family and the community, and how can we work together to make sure community health centers are available and easy to access for families to help with immunizations. I put a link here to that. It has sections about what schools and districts can do, what the community can do. And so this isn't all laid on the family shoulders, like you can't come to school until you get your immunizations. No, we can help you to do that. You may have some family school liaisons who can work with families to help them. We have many families, refugees and immigrant families who are coming into Connecticut right now. And so we want to make sure that our school system may be foreign to them. So we want to make sure that we're assisting them with accessing everything they need so that they can, connections in the community that can help them, it's not all in the school district, of course, but who can help them access housing, clothing, food, whatever it is that they need. And that leads me to McKinney-Vento. And so this actually was a call I received yesterday about refugees and McKinney-Vento. And Gladys is here, so she's our equity director, so she might want to chime in. But there's nothing in McKinney-Vento particular to refugees. However, the McKinney-Vento Act does apply fully to all refugees, include experiencing homelessness. In general, this all came from the federal website. Liaisons receiving families from Afghanistan should identify them as McKinney-Vento eligible now. It's a case-by-case determination, but a lot of times these families are doubling up or sharing space with another family. So you need to look at their, if they have fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. This is a local decision to make this call, but the McKinney, just to remind folks, because we're very concerned about those children who may be eligible for McKinney-Vento services, they are children and youth who lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. It specifically covers children and youth living in motels, shelters, transitional housing, cars, campgrounds, and sharing the housing of others due to loss of housing, economic hardship, or similar reasons. Every district has a McKinney-Vento coordinator who, depending on the district, should be familiar with your district attendance team and your chronic absence data and the student situations around housing. And because I got asked this question, this is why I love getting questions from you guys. I found resources, McKinney-Vento resources translated into Parsi and Dari. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, which is the language, the primary language is spoken in Afghanistan. So there are lots of poster English versions and these translated versions of McKinney-Vento resources available. And then there's some links here if you are in a district who will be receiving families who are refugees from Afghanistan. Any questions about that? Okay, and then these resources are sort of the tried and true slides that I've shown before. Just a reminder, there's a Connecticut Attendance Awareness Campaign where there's resources you can download and print. You can actually put your logo on them. If you're a LEAP district, your RESC is printing a lot of these for you and other resources. So before you go ahead and print them all, make sure you're working with your RESC if you're a LEAP district. Otherwise, you're welcome to download these. We've worked with Attendance Works on this, and you can put your logo on it and go ahead with it and use them. There's actually even coloring pages this year, which are great for home visitors with young children. This is a toolkit for Connecticut school districts on setting up vaccine clinics, which, as the younger students, if vaccines released for them, this may become even more important. So this information is here for you. Some information right now, you should be forming and norming your district attendance team. There's a useful tool from Attendance Works called the self-assessment tool that can help you analyze, if you seem to be how you're doing on that end. There's one for a school attendance team and how to include families in planning and decision making. Attendance 101, this is just, I want you guys to have this because it's loaded with resources. Some of them we've already gone over, but putting them all in one place. Attendance 201 is more of our national partners and state partners. The attendance playbook is there. Everyone knows and loves the attendance playbook. However, I want to call your attention to the guide to using the attendance playbook, which has smart strategies for identifying the interventions to use so that your team is going through a process to determine the root causes and which strategies to use. So you're not just opening the book and saying, oh, we've heard a lot about parent-teacher home visits. Let's do that. That you've gone through this process, and that guide is really helpful. We all know Attendance Works has lots of good resources. If you were at our if you're a part of the work we did with Attendance Works a few years ago, the Peer Learning Network, we did year-long planning calendars, and those were really helpful for, I just want to make sure this works, for districts to determine, like, what should we be doing now around attendance? How many days missed? Who are the kids we should be concerned of? Is this the time of year when some of our families are going on vacation? When should we start talking to them about the impact of taking long vacations or out of school? So So these are here. There's a disclosure, and Attendance Circus has been really good about this. They're trying to update things as fast as they can for COVID, but the year-long planning was before March 2020. So there's preschool level, school team, and district team yearly calendars. Hetty has told me she's going to do one for states too, which would be great. But so those are there for you as well. And I'm going to pop back to my PowerPoint. I'm doing pretty good switching back and forth. I usually get pretty nervous. So the Governor's Prevention Partnership, all the Connecticut mentoring resources, the National Mentoring Partnership, Get Schooled, and Flamboyant is excellent. If you haven't seen their resources about engaging families, please do that, or go to the Talk Tuesday page and visit Judy's presentation from 3 Talk Tuesdays ago. It's right there at the top. So stay connected and learn. Upcoming, our next Talk Tuesday is October 5th from 10 to 11. And then our next community of practice for district attendance leads is on Thursday, September 21. If you have any topics or any FAQs or feedback for us, please let us know. My email is here, kari.sullivan@ct.gov. If you're not receiving emails, sign up for our listserv. And I'm going to go right now and drop the PDF of the PowerPoint into the chat for you. But if you have anything you want to ask, go ahead and put it into the chat. Open. Here it comes. Today's Talk Tuesday PowerPoint. So go ahead and download that, and you will have all these links. And I think this is all right. All right. Well, thank you all for joining today's Talk Tuesday. I'll stay on for a few minutes if you want to stay on if you have any questions, but have a great day and rest of the week. Thank you.